Coming up, thousands of Britons in France scramble to get home to avoid quarantine.
The lunchtime news with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good afternoon. France has been added to the UK quarantine list, meaning that if you can't get back by 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, you'll have to self-isolate for a fortnight. Travellers from the Netherlands, Malta and Monaco will also face the same fate. But the cut-off point, which is in just over 12 hours, is causing a race to return in time. Eurotunnel is warning people to stay away unless they already have a booking and says all shuttles are booked right up to tomorrow morning, and many direct flights to the UK have already sold out. Our political reporter Shihab Khan has the latest. Well, France is the second most popular destination for Britons heading on holiday. The first is, of course, Spain, which is on the quarantine list too. Our correspondent Dan Rivers is in Calais for us. He sent this report a few minutes ago. All right, Dan Rivers there in Calais. Well, let's speak now to travel editor at The Independent, Simon Calder, who is at St Pancras International for us this lunchtime. Simon, it's only across the water, but it's going to be a real challenge for many people trying to get home before that deadline, especially if they're cutting their trip short to avoid quarantine. Well, for a full guide of the new travel changes and how it will affect you, just head to our website, itv.com/news. While options abroad are increasingly tricky from this weekend, you can do more at home. In England, the government has announced that further easing of restrictions, which were postponed 2 weeks ago, can now go ahead. It says infection rates have... Our correspondent Stacey Foster has been to a bowling alley in Bury St Edmunds, where they will finally be able to welcome customers back from this weekend. She sent this report a few minutes ago. Stacey Foster with that report. And it isn't just England where changes are coming. Those living in Wales will be able to meet more people inside later on this month. Sejal Carrier is here. Sejal, what more can you tell us about this?
Yes.
Pressure is growing on the government to step in and act following yesterday's A-level exam results. Around 40% of teachers' estimates were downgraded by exam boards, leaving many students at risk of losing out on university places. And experts have warned it is pupils in poorer areas who have been worst affected by the algorithm. Well, to discuss this more now, we can speak. The government has secured early access to another 2 potential vaccines for COVID-19. 90 million doses have been agreed with Belgian pharmaceutical company Janssen and US biotech company Novavax. Along with existing deals, it means the UK now has access to 6 different could-be vaccines. But will any of them actually work? Well, Kate, thank you. Memorial services are taking place today to mark the first anniversary of the death of Thames Valley Police officer PC Andrew Harper. Prince Charles has visited the scene of Wednesday's fatal train crash in Aberdeenshire. The Duke of Rothesay, as he's known when he's in Scotland, thanked the emergency responders who were first to arrive and help. Rebecca Barry sent this report from near the scene. Rebecca Barry there. Our top story today, France has been added to the UK quarantine list along with other countries, including the Netherlands and Malta. And that is it. I'm back here with the ITV Evening News at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather. But for now, from everyone here on the lunchtime team, bye-bye. Hello again. Now the main stories in London. The police have released e-fit pictures of 2 men they want to trace in connection with the 2 distraction burglaries targeting elderly people in East London. But weather now, here's James Wright with the forecast. That is it for now. Duncan is back here at 6. Until then, whatever you're doing, enjoy your afternoon. Bye-bye. British holidaymakers in France have just hours to get home before quarantine begins. On
Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. For thousands of Britons in France, the rush to get home before new quarantine restrictions are put in place is well underway. Throughout the day, whether it be by boat, plane or train, tourists have been making every effort to get home before the new rules come into force tomorrow morning. It follows a surge of new coronavirus cases in the country. From 4 a.m, anyone arriving in the UK from France, as well as the Netherlands and Malta, will have to self-isolate for 14 days. But as Dan Rivers reports from Calais, despite extra ferries being laid on, some will still not make it back on time. Well, the decision to strip France and other countries of its safe status is not just a blow for those on holiday there, but for the whole travel industry. It means the UK's two most popular destinations are now off limits to British tourists. And as our consumer editor, Chris Choi, explains, it's leaving families still dreaming of a summer break abroad with a potentially costly headache. Well, let's go back now to Dan Rivers in Calais. The government is facing growing calls, including from its own MPs, to look again at how A-level results were decided in England. More than 200,000 students, many from poorer schools, had their grades their teachers had predicted revised downwards. Well, Labour said it was a betrayal and wants England to follow Scotland's lead and base results purely on those predictions. Ministers, though, say any U-turn would devalue the results of other pupils. Here's our political correspondent, Libby Vina. Businesses providing indoor activities say they are relieved after it was announced the latest easing of lockdown in England will finally go ahead this weekend. But the changes will not come into force in parts of the north of England and Midlands, where restrictions have been imposed on meeting friends and other families. Those rules will remain in place for at least another week. We'll have more on that in a moment. Elsewhere, though, from tomorrow, skating rinks, casinos and soft play areas can reopen. Indoor music and theatre performances with socially distanced audiences can begin again. And wedding receptions with up to 30 guests can also go ahead. Well, Stacey Foster reports from Bury St Edmunds on the other businesses hoping to get back to some kind of normal. As I mentioned earlier, those changes will not come into effect in parts of the northwest, West Yorkshire, East Lancashire and Leicester. Their restrictions on meeting other households have been extended for another week. Well, our science editor Tom Clark is here. And any improvement on infection rates in those areas, though?
Well, you remember end of June, I think, and that could explain one of these other slight mysteries of these local hotspot areas.
But first, tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets of Belarus's capital to demonstrate against a brutal police crackdown on protests. In the days since the country's disputed election, hundreds of protesters have been arrested and beaten. They accuse President Lukashenko of rigging last week's vote. Today, many were released, revealing their bruises and broken bones. A warning, our senior international correspondent Jonah Vine's report begins with images of some of those injuries. The principal of Scotland's biggest ballet school has been suspended tonight. Gillian Barton, who runs Ballet West in Argyll, has been removed from her role. Our Scotland correspondent, Peter. Some of the day's other news now. River Islands become the latest high street retailer to announce job cuts. 300. More details have been released on what caused Wednesday's fatal rail accident in Aberdeenshire. The team investigating what happened have revealed the train crashed through a barrier and off a bridge after hitting a landslide. 3 people on board were killed. Today, the Prince of Wales visited the scene to see the work being carried out. Well, STV reporter. And finally, to many, the Allies' defeat of Nazi Germany marked the end of the brutality of the Second World War. But for hundreds of thousands of soldiers, many drawn from Commonwealth countries, including India, the fighting still had many months to go. It was not until the 15th of August 1945, 75 years ago tomorrow, that victory over Japan was declared. And as Paul Davies has been hearing, many are still fighting to this day for their sacrifice to be remembered. And that is it. Raggy is here with news at 10, but from me and all the team here, bye-bye.